Imagine lying in a hospital bed in labor, calling your husband, and realizing he's not picking up because he's too busy screwing his co-worker. He didn't know that moment was the last time he'd ever be part of our lives. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. My name is Natalie. I'm 31 years old and a commercial pilot from Colorado. I've always lived a fast-paced life, airports, early flights, and long nights. But nothing prepared me for the day I went into labor 3 weeks early. I was home alone, feeling strange cramps. I timed them and knew something wasn't right. My baby was coming, fast. I called my husband, Caleb, who was supposed to be at a work dinner. He didn't answer. I called again. Nothing. I texted. Still no reply. My breathing got heavy. I was scared, and I was alone. So I called my younger sister, Mia. She said she'd meet me at the hospital right away. While I was in the ambulance, Mia called me back. Her voice was shaking. She had driven past a hotel on her way to the hospital and saw Caleb's car parked there. Same license plate, same little scratch on the back bumper. I told her to take a photo and say nothing else. That was the moment I knew. My husband wasn't working. He wasn't stuck in traffic. He was cheating on me with the same woman he once swore was just his assistant. At the hospital, I was hooked to machines, trying to stay calm. The nurse asked where my husband was. I didn't know what to say. I just smiled and said, running late. Every contraction felt like my body was tearing apart. But the real pain, that was in my chest, my heart. Caleb, the man who begged me to start a family, the man who kissed my stomach and whispered promises to our baby, he had betrayed me at the worst moment. I gave birth to a baby girl just after midnight. She was beautiful, perfect. I named her Emma, and as I held her for the first time, I made a promise, not just to her, but to myself. Caleb had made his choice. Now I would make mine. While the nurses cleaned Emma and ran their checks, I reached for my phone. Between feeding and trying to sleep, I started writing everything down. Times, messages, what Mia saw. I wasn't crying anymore. I was thinking, planning. He had no idea what was coming. He thought he'd walk into that hospital room the next day, smiling like nothing happened. But he would never see us the same way again. He would never be part of our lives again. The delivery room was bright, cold, and full of people I didn't know. Nurses moved quickly, checking monitors and speaking in calm, serious voices. I was shaking, holding onto the side rails of the hospital bed, trying to breathe through the pain. There was no one beside me, no husband holding my hand, no comforting words, just strangers doing their jobs while I brought my daughter into the world. I kept looking at the door, hoping someone I loved would walk through it, but no one did. My best friend Avery had booked the first flight she could, but she was still in the air. Caleb hadn't called, hadn't texted. It was like we didn't exist to him anymore. The pain was sharp and steady. At one point, I closed my eyes and tried to go somewhere else in my mind, somewhere before everything went wrong. I remembered Caleb back when we were happy. He used to talk about having kids all the time. He was the one who pushed for it when I said I wasn't ready. He told me I'd be an amazing mum, that he couldn't wait to be a father. But once I got pregnant, he started to change. He stopped coming to appointments. He complained about how tired I always was. He said I wasn't fun anymore. Slowly, he stopped talking to me like a partner and more like a burden. I thought maybe it was stress, that once the baby came, things would get better. I was wrong. After what felt like a lifetime, I heard the nurse say, "One more push." I did it, and then, suddenly, it was quiet. Then came the cry, my baby's cry, a sound I'll never forget. They placed her on my chest, wrapped in a soft white blanket. She was tiny, red-faced, and perfect. I stared at her, tears finally falling, not from pain, but from something deeper, love, sadness, relief. I whispered her name, Emma. In that moment, I knew something with complete certainty. I would raise her with everything I had. I would give her the love and support she deserved, but I would never let her think a man like Caleb was someone to look up to. He had chosen absence. I was choosing strength. Back home, I played the part of a tired new mum. I let Caleb walk through the door like nothing had happened. He came in smiling, holding flowers and a stuffed bear. He kissed me on the cheek, looked down at our daughter Emma, and said, "She looks just like me." I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I smiled and nodded. He had no idea I knew everything. For the next few days, I acted like everything was normal. I thanked him for helping with chores. I let him hold Emma, rock her to sleep, and even take selfies with her. But I watched closely. I noticed how he never stayed home for long. Always had a meeting, a showing, a dinner. Always glued to his phone. Always texting someone else when he thought I wasn't looking. I started collecting everything. I pulled up our shared cell phone records while he slept. I found a pattern. Late-night calls to the same number. Texts sent while I was in labor. I screen recorded them all and saved them to a hidden folder. I found a dinner receipt from the night Emma was born. Steakhouse, 2 guests, bottle of wine. I took a picture and printed it. I even went into his laptop when he left it open one night. His email told me more than he ever had. There were calendar invites titled Team Bonding that matched the hotel address Mia had spotted. My hands shook, but I kept going. I forwarded everything to a new email account I made just for this. But what mattered most were the lies I caught him telling out loud. I started asking him little things when he wasn't paying attention. "Where were you again on the night Emma was born?" I'd ask while changing diapers. He'd say, "Dinner with a client. Took forever." I recorded that on my phone in my pocket. I'd mention how much I appreciated his support. He'd say, "You know I never left your side through this whole thing." Another lie, another recording. Sometimes I'd just watch him holding Emma and wonder how someone so heartless could look so normal. But it didn't matter. Every moment he spent lying to my face while holding our child gave me more power, more proof, more fire. He didn't know I was building a case, one careful piece at a time. The storm was coming, and when it hit, I wouldn't be the one caught in it. I waited until Caleb had just finished feeding Emma. He looked so proud, cradling her in his arms like he hadn't abandoned us the night she was born. I sat across from him, calm and quiet, letting the moment settle. Then I said, "I know where you were the night I gave birth." He blinked. "What do you mean?" "You were with her, at the hotel, while I was in labor alone." His smile vanished. "Natalie, come on. You've been under a lot of stress. You're not thinking clearly." There it was. His first attempt at gaslighting. I didn't flinch. "I have your location history, your text messages, your dinner receipts. I even have your voice on tape lying about it. So don't insult me by pretending I'm imagining things." He set Emma down in her crib, slowly. "Okay, maybe I wasn't completely honest, but you were different, Natalie. Ever since you got pregnant, everything changed. You were tired, distant, hard to talk to. I needed someone who still saw me." His words made me feel nothing. No anger, no shock, just a cold sort of clarity. "So you cheated because I was growing your child and didn't have time to baby you?" He stood up, defensive now. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. You twist everything. I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did." I walked to the front door and opened it. "Get out." He looked stunned. "Are you serious?" "Very." He grabbed his keys in silence, muttering under his breath. I didn't care what he said. I closed the door behind him without looking back. The next morning, I had him served with custody papers at his office. I'd already filed for sole custody. The court date was set. When he called to scream at me, I didn't answer. When he showed up at my door, I let him knock until he gave up. The real surprise came later. His parents called me. I expected judgment or pressure. Instead, his mum said, "We're ashamed of him. You're doing what's right for Emma. We support you." And just like that, Caleb was alone. His lies had caught up to him, and I hadn't even raised my voice. Caleb didn't stop calling. For the first few days after I served him custody papers, he rang my phone morning, afternoon, and night. First, it was the fake concern. "Natalie, please, let's just talk. Don't do this to Emma." Then came the guilt trips. "You're tearing our family apart." Finally, the anger. "You'll regret this. I'm her father." I blocked him. He tried email, then text. Then he started showing up at my apartment building. I never answered the door. I never responded. I told my lawyer everything, and we documented every incident. He sent flowers, toys, and handwritten letters with dramatic lines like, "I'll never stop fighting for my daughter." But he had already stopped fighting for us the night I needed him most. That was all I ever needed to know. I wasn't heartless. I just wasn't blind anymore. My lawyer helped me begin the process of changing Emma's last name. I wanted her to grow up with my name, not the name of a man who abandoned her before she even opened her eyes. It wasn't just about the name. It was about ownership of her story. She was mine. I was the one who held her through sleepless nights, through tears and lullabies. Caleb didn't deserve a line on her birth certificate, let alone a role in her life. Some of Caleb's friends started reaching out. One messaged me saying, "Come on, Natalie. Everyone makes mistakes. You're punishing him too harshly." Another left a voicemail. "At least let him see the baby. It's been months." I answered once, just once, when a mutual friend asked for an explanation. I was screaming on a delivery table, terrified and alone, I said calmly. He wasn't there. He chose to be somewhere else, with someone else. That's all I needed to know. After that, they stopped trying. There were moments when I looked at Emma and felt a wave of sadness. Sadness that she wouldn't have a dad reading bedtime stories or cheering her on at school plays. But then I remembered, it's better to have no father than a selfish, unreliable one. She would grow up knowing love, safety, and strength. She would never wonder why her mum stayed in a home where she wasn't respected. Every time Caleb tried to guilt me into letting him back in, it only reminded me why I closed the door in the first place. He left when it mattered most, and I would never give him another chance to leave again. Court was cold, not just the room, but the way it stripped everything down to facts. No emotions, no tears, just evidence, and I came prepared. Caleb showed up in a tailored suit, acting like he was the victim. His lawyer was aggressive from the start, asking why I was denying Caleb his right to be a father. He tried to make me seem bitter and unstable, suggesting postpartum emotions had clouded my judgment. I didn't flinch. I opened my folder and handed over every piece of proof. Screenshots of texts between him and his assistant, location records placing him at the hotel the night I gave birth, voice recordings of him lying to my face while holding our daughter. It was all organized, time-stamped, and impossible to argue against. The judge, an older woman with tired eyes but a sharp mind, read everything carefully. She asked Caleb why he wasn't at the hospital. He stuttered, gave a vague excuse about miscommunication and bad timing. She pressed him. Your wife went into early labor. You didn't pick up her calls. Then you didn't arrive. Can you explain why she has a receipt showing you were at a hotel with another woman that night? He went silent. His lawyer tried to spin it, claiming it was a private matter, irrelevant to his parenting ability. But the judge wasn't buying it. If you abandon a woman during childbirth, she said, you're not ready to be a father. I didn't speak much, just answered when asked. I didn't cry. I didn't need to. The truth was louder than any emotion. By the end of the hearing, the judge ruled in my favor. I was granted sole legal and physical custody. Caleb was denied visitation, no contact, not even supervised. The judge said he needed a full psychiatric evaluation before any future review. Caleb looked stunned, like this outcome had never crossed his mind. But I had imagined it every day since the moment I gave birth alone. As I walked out of that courtroom, I didn't feel victorious. I felt relieved. My daughter would be safe. She wouldn't grow up watching me beg a man to stay. She'd grow up knowing her mom fought for both of them and won. 1 year later, life looked completely different, but in the best way. I was back in the skies again, flying cargo jets part-time for a logistics company. The roar of the engine, the feel of the controls in my hands, it gave me peace. Flying had always been my escape, even before everything fell apart. My Uncle Henry, a retired Air Force pilot, had moved in nearby when I went back to work. He adored Emma. He said she reminded him of my mother, strong, stubborn, and full of light. Emma had just turned 1. She was walking now, wobbling around the house like she owned it, her tiny hands grabbing everything she could reach. She babbled non-stop, most of it nonsense, but every sound made me smile. She didn't know her world was missing anything, and that was the point. I had made sure of it. Then came the package, a plain brown box with no return label, just addressed to Emma. Inside, a stuffed animal and a card, and a letter, handwritten, from Caleb. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. The handwriting alone was enough to make my heart twist in a way I hated. I slid the card and the letter back inside the box, taped it shut, and dropped it off at the post office the next day. Returned to sender. Unopened. Unwanted. A few days later, I got a message from a mutual friend. Caleb had been asking about Emma, saying he had changed, that he wanted to be part of her life. But I remembered the silence, the cold, empty hospital room, the sound of my phone ringing with no answer while I screamed through contractions. That was the moment he made his choice. And this silence I give him now, is mine. I could have screamed. I could have cursed him out. But I've learned that sometimes silence is the sharpest blade. You don't need to fight someone who already lost the right to matter. Emma doesn't know him. She never asks. Her world is full of love. My uncle, my best friend Avery, and me. That's more than enough. Sometimes I catch myself looking at her while she sleeps. She's peaceful, safe, untouched by the pain her father caused. And I feel proud, not just because I survived, but because I protected her from ever feeling that kind of betrayal. He chose absence. Now he can live with it. Word started spreading slowly, like it always does in small towns. Caleb had been dumped by the same assistant he cheated with. Apparently, she packed her things and left after a huge blowout in public. Some people said she screamed at him in the middle of a restaurant. Others said she threw a drink in his face. Either way, it was over. Not long after, her name popped up on local parenting forums. She didn't mention us directly, but the posts were obvious. Long rants about how some women poison their kids against good fathers, and how a man can't heal if he's being punished forever. She played the victim, painting Caleb as some heartbroken dad robbed of his chance to love his daughter. I saw the posts. I didn't respond. What was the point? Lies spread quickly, but the truth is patient. It doesn't shout, it just waits. Avery sent me screenshots, angry on my behalf. She wanted to clap back, say something, but I told her it wasn't worth it. Let them talk. Let them twist the story. I didn't owe anyone an explanation. Then came the other updates. Caleb had started drinking more, not just socially. People noticed. He looked tired, worn down, and sloppy. His real estate business took a hit after a big deal fell apart. Rumor was he missed deadlines and meetings. He wasn't the sharp, polished man people remembered. A mutual friend called me out of the blue one evening, someone I hadn't spoken to since before the divorce. They sounded gentle, hesitant. They said Caleb had been talking about Emma lately, how he missed her, how he regretted everything. They asked me if I'd ever consider letting him meet her, just once. I didn't hesitate. No, it was firm, final, unshaken. He had a chance. Many chances. He abandoned his daughter when she needed him most. He wasn't there for her first breath, her first cry, or her first steps. And he didn't deserve to witness anything else after that. Let him live in his stories and regrets. Let him scroll through those parenting forums hoping someone believes his lies. But he wouldn't find forgiveness here, not from me, and certainly not through Emma. Natalie sat on the floor of her quiet living room, the soft sound of Emma's toys clinking in the background. Her daughter was napping now, curled up on the couch with her favorite stuffed rabbit, her little chest rising and falling with peaceful breaths. Natalie looked at the wooden box in front of her, a simple thing, no bigger than a shoebox. But to her, it was everything. This was the memory box she had been building for Emma since the day she was born, not for birthday cards or baby teeth, but for the truth. The kind of truth that might hurt to hear, but would be far better than a lifetime of lies. One day, when Emma was old enough to understand, this box would answer every question before it could turn into pain. Natalie placed photos inside first. Pictures of Emma as a newborn, Natalie holding her with tired but proud eyes. Pictures from their quiet first birthday celebration, a small cupcake and pink balloons, just the two of them, and Avery, who had become more like family than anyone else. No father in sight, and that was intentional. Then came the letters. Journal entries she had written late at night, long after Emma had gone to sleep. Some were full of tears, others of strength. She had written about her fears, her joys, and her promise to never let Emma feel abandoned. Each page was folded neatly, placed in chronological order, a story written in a mother's hand. Next, the hotel receipt, the one her sister had photographed and handed to her in the hospital. Caleb's name printed clearly at the top, the check-in time just hours after Natalie had gone into labor. The receipt that changed everything. That tiny slip of paper had shattered her marriage, but it also gave her clarity. She slipped it into a small envelope and placed it beneath the letters. Finally, she held the letter she had written to Caleb but never sent. It was raw and honest, full of the anger she had buried deep inside. She didn't plan on Emma reading it unless she needed to understand the depth of the betrayal. Natalie read it once more before sealing it shut. Then she wrote one last page, a note just for Emma. In calm, loving handwriting, she wrote, "You'll never need him. You were born stronger than he'll ever be. You were never the reason he left. You were the reason I stayed standing. I built this life for you. I built it without him. And we are whole, just the two of us." She closed the box, gently placing it on the highest shelf in her closet, out of reach for now. But one day, when Emma asked, she'd have everything she needed to know. The sun was bright over the small airfield as families gathered for the annual community flight day. Natalie stood beside her cargo jet, greeting curious kids and answering questions from eager parents. Emma, now 6, ran around nearby with a paper pilot's cap, giggling as she showed her friends Mommy's plane. Natalie had come a long way. In 5 years, she had rebuilt her life piece by piece, quietly, powerfully, and without apology. Flying part-time gave her balance. Emma gave her purpose and peace. That came from never looking back until today. Out of the corner of her eye, she spotted him. Caleb. He was thinner than she remembered, older somehow, with sunken eyes and a jittery posture. His clothes looked wrinkled, and he reeked of alcohol even from several feet away. He pushed past the ropes separating guests from the aircraft, slurring her name. "Natalie, please, just talk to me." She didn't flinch, didn't blink. Security was on him in seconds, grabbing his arms and pulling him back. Caleb resisted, yelling that he had a right to see his daughter, that she had ruined his life. A few people turned to look, some whispering, others shielding their kids. Natalie remained composed. She didn't say a word. Her eyes never met his. Emma tugged at her hand, confused. "Mommy, who was that man yelling?" Natalie looked down at her daughter, confident, curious, strong, the way she had always dreamed she'd be. She smiled gently and smoothed Emma's hair. "Nobody, sweetheart," she said softly. "Just someone who got lost." Emma nodded and turned her attention back to the plane, climbing the steps like she owned the sky. Natalie followed her up, pausing for one brief moment at the top of the stairs. She glanced back, not at Caleb, but at the life behind her, the drama, the pain, the betrayal. It was behind her now. She stepped into the cockpit, settled into the seat, and placed her hands on the controls. Emma peeked in from the jump seat, grinning. "Ready for takeoff, Captain?" Natalie smiled back. "Always." Do you think Natalie was right to walk away without ever looking back? Or should she have let Caleb be a part of Emma's life in some small way? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd really love to hear them. And if stories like this move you, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next one.